Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar titled Corporate Treasury, Requirements for Optimized Service. This is Brian from Strategic Treasurer, and we're pleased you could join us as we discuss how corporate treasury and banks can work to optimize banking relationships and service. Our speakers for today are Jani Lowdell, Director of IT Employee Services at SouthState, and Craig Jeffery, Founder and Managing Partner of Strategic Treasurer. Welcome, Jani and Craig, and I'll now turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Brian, and good morning, Jani. It's good to present with you.
Good morning. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, and welcome, everyone. Jani and I would like to add our welcome to you, and thanks for joining us as we talk through this topic about corporate treasury. How do we optimize service? And that discussion should be a fun one. We're looking forward to it. But let's get started with an overview of what we're going to cover today. So you can see the 6 rectangles that cover our topic. So the first one is about customer service. And when we say dynamic definition, the concept here is that expectations are changing for various reasons. These include what people may experience on the consumer side, the age cohort that you're a part of. There's a number of elements and that can create that change, including technology. Then we'll look at channels of delivery. When we think about customer service and responding to queries, what are the different options and drivers? So this can be everything from in person, by phone, email, self-service, chatbots, lots of different channels for customer service to happen. And different people have different expectations and different requirements and different hopes, and these vary depending on the type of task. Then we'll look at communication preferences. And so we'll focus a little bit on the general characteristics of the age cohorts. This is not going to be rigorous and rigid, but just some of the things that we can learn from. I think we'll find that to be interesting. But there's also, as we go from there to efficiency, is how do we match the task to the service channel? What's the right level of lining those up? And when we think about that, the number of touches matters. And you've probably all had experiences where you're texting someone, and it's like back and forth and back and forth. It's like a phone call would have resolved that in 1 minute, and texting took 10 minutes, and my thumbs are sore. But at the same time, there can be an ideal approach depending on the type of need, the service, and what's most efficient. Then we'll look at optimizing the service across the board, this omni-channel. If there's lots of ways people can get service, how is that managed, and how can we excel as users of those services or as banks as providers of customer service? On the key takeaway slide, we'll cover needs. We'll look at technology, outcome optimization, and more. So we'll cover that during today's session. So let's get into the first section here that we'll cover, and Jani will take us away on customer expectations. So we got 4 things on the screen. Go ahead, Jani. Let us know how we should be thinking about customer expectations.
Thanks, Craig. Yeah, I mean, when you think about how you provide and deliver support, it really starts with what the customer expects. And I think expectations have evolved, especially over the last 10 years, but even further, what maybe was considered going above and beyond 10 years ago is really the expectation today. When you think about how our everyday lives have changed, you think about Amazon. When Amazon first came out, it was a game changer for what we expect when we purchase something, when we order something. Now, before you go to a store or you order something from online or a catalog, and you have an estimated delivery date, and you hope that it arrives within those 7 to 10 business days or whatnot. Now you order something from Amazon. Most of the time you can get it the same day. You get an email or a text message to your phone saying, hey, it's left the warehouse and it's on its way, all the way to the extent of, in my house, the Amazon Alexa makes a little sound, which tells me that the Amazon driver just dropped a package on my front door. So some of those, the methods and the expectations of what is baseline has significantly changed over the last 10 to 20 years. So understanding what those expectations are from your customer is kind of the first starting point for how you create and define what good service looks like in your organization. There's generational factors, like Craig mentioned. You think about baby boomers, they value the relationship and the access to the person. And then you compare that, and we'll dig a little deeper in a little bit, to millennials and Gen Z, where their preference is really based around speed and digital, and can I get this done in the palm of my hand without having to get in the car and drive to a bank branch, or drive to the place where I'm getting the service. Then you think about context. So from the perspective of the customer, the service needs differ based on the urgency, the task complexity, and the frustration level, right? If somebody is highly frustrated, there's a problem that they need a solution for right now, they're less likely to go log into a portal and submit a request and wait for that answer to come back. They want to pick up the phone, and they want to call, and they want to hear somebody on the other end that's empathetic and that helps them. Whereas, if they just have a general, I need a copy of a check, they may lob that out into a customer service portal and wait for that to get returned back, or they may send an email, and it's not so urgent. So the context of what they need and what the urgency and the complexity of the task and the frustration level is kind of key when you're thinking about what good service looks like and what channel. And then obviously customer experience is a big piece. You think about that, back to that Amazon experience, and we've all seen good interactions from a support perspective, and then not so good. But understanding that our corporate clients really compare their banking interactions with those seamless digital experiences that they get every day. So that Amazon experience, that has become the norm, and that has become the bar that is set. So they're going to compare how they interact with your support desks, your organization. They're going to compare it to that. And they're going to say, did it meet that bar that was set? Or was this different? Was this different in a good way? Was it better? Was it easier? Was there less friction? Or was it a little bit more difficult? Was it a little bit more manual? And we have to kind of think about all of these things in a whole to really present and prepare how are we going to deliver service, and what does that good service look like from the eyes of our customers, not from the eyes of what we know and what we have generally and historically done.
Right. Thanks, Jani. Yeah. And, part of that, the service channel preferences, I think tied into some of what you were saying is how urgent is something? How many touch points are there? If we look at service channels, I was thinking about, do you call 911 if there's an emergency, immediate emergency? It's medical, it's the police, it's fire. And they also have a non-emergency number. But I know in our town, probably like in your town or city, they have forms on the website. You can fill in something you want to provide information for a report, but it's not worth bothering someone over, but you want to report it, you type it in. So there's at least 3 levels in addition to talking to, let's say, the police officer. On the service channels, we have self-service, and that's pretty efficient, I've got to say. If I can solve the issue myself with some clicks, that's ideal. In person is pretty impactful. 2 people have to be involved. There's got to be some significant value for that to bear the cost of that type of interaction. On the AI chatbot, I don't know how many people love AI chatbots, how many hate them, how many of them have a different feel about them. But, I think there's the, what is it called, Jani? The rage clicks. If you're like, get me a person. It's like, it's gone down a path that's not as effective as you'd like. But when I think about when you use a touch tone phone, it gives you those menu options, and you go all the way down, and it's like, none of those are the options. And you keep cycling back. I think chatbots are significantly better than that. They get smarter each time you use them. And to the extent that it solves the problem, great. To the extent that you have to fill in information like 6 times, those tend to be a less happy medium. I think of email as I've got to provide a lot of detail. And so I have to type in a lot of information to get full context. Phone is just an easy way to talk through things. And there's others. Those are some of the service channels that we think about. There might be others that you use. I don't know if you had any comments on the service channels, Janie, or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot out there, and I think it's important to know, back to what I was saying before, the preferences, really in the drivers of when am I going to use each of those channels. It's important to know what we're capable of, what we have the abilities to staff and train and support, but what our customers choose to use and why, right? If you think about what drives the usage of an AI chatbot versus picking up the phone and asking for help, goes back to those task types, the urgency, the frustration level, the speed of response, and the cost. You think about the rage clicks. Eventually, I'm going to hang up, or I'm going to exit out of that portal because I'm stuck and I'm not getting where I want to go. If it's urgent, right, or if I'm highly frustrated, I'm more likely to pick up the phone and just say, "Hey, Craig, I'm so thankful to have a voice on the other end of the phone. I need help, or I need to solve this problem, or I need to get this transaction through," whatever the case may be. Whereas if it's something that just is low urgency, just a normal everyday task, I may be more likely to go through all the prompts using a chatbot, or answer all the questions, or go through a portal because it's something I'm not highly frustrated about, or it's not super urgent. But I think understanding the drivers behind that and being able to couple what our clients get on the other end, right? So you never want to staff up a phone, for example, support line with somebody that maybe has a robotic approach, or doesn't sound empathetic, right? Maybe those are the people that work the tickets, or work the portal submissions. So thinking about what goes into kind of staffing that up, and what the customer is expecting when they reach out to each of these kind of channels is important.
Yeah, that's great. Anything else on the right side, the cost or frustration level? I think you might have covered all of that, but
yeah, I mean, I think one of the sentiments too around cost is, and I think companies can fall into this, it's really easy for us to say, hey, we want to put self-service first. We want to put bots first, or chat first, because it's the cheapest, right? You don't have to staff it with a human. You don't have to, pay benefits and all the other things. But it has to be coupled with the experience, right? And the level of support that our clients expect. Otherwise, it's going to come with a different cost. And that could be a reputational cost. It could be an experience cost, where we have done something, or we've made a decision to try to create efficiency, or reduce spend cost of support. And we've maybe created not such a great feeling for our clients. So when you think about cost, it's not just the tangible, it's the intangible too, that you have to factor in. And I always joke, it's hard to quantify or qualify sentiment, but you can tell when your customer is unhappy with the support that they're getting. How do you articulate that into, I need to spend money in either staffing or in the purchase of an AI solution that'll make support better and reduce friction and reduce frustration? I think it's really important to be able to both qualify and quantify the tangible and the intangible costs that go into all of the channels of support that we provide.
yeah, excellent. So yeah, thanks for digging into that.
Yeah.
Everybody, there is our first poll question. This is a multiple choice. You can select more than one. That's what that means, as we all know. So the question is, which banking channels do you use most frequently for Treasury tasks? Calls, customer service, calls to the relationship manager, email, portals or self-service, chatbots, other, or ensure. Go ahead and select those and go ahead and submit those. If you don't see the poll question, Brian has provided some helpful instructions in the chat box. You can see Alt Tab and a couple other options to see or view it. If those don't work, your organization may be blocking pop-up boxes within Zoom and can't fix that from our side. All right. Give everybody a moment to do that. In the chat box as well, once you've submitted them, please follow SouthState on LinkedIn and Strategic Treasurer if you're not already following SouthState or Strategic Treasurer. That's a great way to stay connected, keep in touch, and to delight and thrill our marketing teams. I just have a chance to finish up. And if you like seeing poll results, let's have 99 people type in the word SouthState in the chat box. If that happens, we'll send out all the poll results to everybody. So in the section where you see the poll question, the poll results will have a slide there with the stats. So that would be awesome if you do that. We like data. Hopefully you like data as well. All right. Number one, Jani, is email is used most frequently for Treasury. 4 out of 5, half use portals or self-service, a little bit less calls to the relationship manager, even less calls to the customer service. I'd love for you to comment on that. That seems a little surprising that relationship manager comes before customer service.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that the email is the first, but thinking about the Treasury client and the nature of the business, I think it makes sense. But calls to the relationship manager being a little bit higher than calls to customer service, I'm not super surprised. You think about the relationship, especially with corporate clients, it's important, and sometimes just having that security of I'm talking to my banker, I'm talking to my relationship manager. They know my business, they know me, they know my preferences, they know most of the time they know my team. I think that gives our clients a level of comfort that they don't necessarily get if they're calling into customer service, or in some worlds a call center that there's a person there, but it's not a person that I know, it's not a person that I've dealt with, it's not a person that knows me and my business. So I think the relationship manager piece is really a critical function, and I think it's important to know how important it is to the customer and to the client, because making sure that we create opportunities for that relationship manager to be available, to be out with their client, goes back to some of the things we talked about, the omni-channel support, right? Are we utilizing technology? Are we utilizing AI? Do we have self-service so that we can reduce the number of things that humans have to answer, so that our people can be out there building those relationships and responding to the customer. I think it's interesting too, just looking at this poll, portal and self-service is close, right? It's kind of up there. But chatbots, because of those rage clicks and the get me to the right answer, I'm getting stuck in that chat loop. I think you're going to see a shift in that especially in the next 5 to 10 years. I think AI is really going to transform the way that we work, but the way that questions get answered. No longer do we have to read a 2-page FAQ on how to process wire transfers. I can ask a specific question and an AI chatbot will give me the very specific answer with step-by-step instructions of how to do it. So I think that you're going to see that shift in the next few years. But the relationship manager piece is I think that's always going to be a critical piece.
Yeah, you're going to have to tighten up that chatbots in 5 to 10 years. Can you pull that in a little bit?
Yeah.
That'll be more important.
Yeah.
You did say the next few years. It seems like they're improving for the most part. So hopefully.
Well, I think historically chatbots have been fed information, right? Chatbots without AI and artificial intelligence or large language learning models is really just you're feeding an FAQ into a bot and it's regurgitating that information back out. Whereas you get into the AI piece and it will actually learn as questions are asked and answered, and it can learn from all of these other support channels if you feed it that information, right? So it could see, potentially we plug it into our portal and our self-service, and it can say, hey, Jani, people are asking this question and we don't have good answers out there. It can tell you what knowledge and information to create. It can also tell you what other people have answered. So even if I didn't feed the chatbot the answer to this question, but maybe somebody in a portal, an agent that's supporting a portal request did, it can grab that answer and now it knows the answer. So I think that's really the difference between just a general bot or chatbot and an AI chatbot. I think that's going to be the transformational shift.
Yeah, that's really good calibration. Jani, one of the items in the chat box came up, the relationship manager understands how and when to escalate based on our business. I think that's pretty insightful. So thanks for that comment. Now we get to some real world examples. I think if we ask people to type in the chat box, and we're not doing this, to type in the chat box different examples that we could go through, we could fill up several screens of this, but maybe you could start us off on some real world examples and how people tend to view these: urgency, frustration, speed needed.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about, why people choose the channels that they choose and when. This is a great kind of just visual of that. Urgency, frustration, and speed need. It just really comes down to that. When do I need it? How bad do I need it? And how frustrated am I? So you think about, I'm sitting at a closing table and I'm waiting for a wire that I sent. Most people don't go send that wire 2 weeks before the closing, right? They send it either the afternoon before or the morning of. And if there's any kind of hiccup in that, I mean, that can be a very frustrating scenario. It's high urgency. They're not going to let you sign and close and walk out of that closing table without that wire coming through and confirmation. And you need it to happen now. So if there's any delay or holdup, that can become kind of a high urgency, very high frustration, and very high speed need. But then on the flip side, you think about, I need a copy of a check for my accountant. It may be low urgency. He doesn't need it right now, unless it's, April 15th, and I don't have an extension filed. Probably not a lot of frustration around it. And maybe I don't need it right now, but maybe next week is fine. Those are the times when maybe a channel like a portal or sending an email or using a chatbot are going to be the preferred method, right? It's not really a high urgency thing. You think about ACH returns, it's a medium level urgency, but the speed need is high. You only have certain timing windows to make those kinds of changes and returns on ACHs. And if you run into obstacles, it can be a high frustration area. So, looking at kind of the breakdown of this, I think it's really important to make sure that we have open channels and paths for each of these types of urgencies and frustration levels. Craig, I don't know if you want to touch on the last few, but I just love this kind of breakdown.
Yeah, we probably could have put a visibility column in as well, because if we talk about implementation status, it's like speed. Well, it's low, but it's also, that should be self-service. Everyone should have visibility to, let's say, some type of project plan, or they can see the exact status. If there's a question, they can ask it in context. But implementation status, it's, these things take days, weeks, sometimes months. The urgency tends to be low unless you're doing testing. Now, when you get to testing, that's like, you want people on the phone. We're sending wires through production value tests. I want people to see it go through the production system. Frustration, that can vary, right? Depends on where you are with your ultimate deadline. Set up for repeating transfers. This is another one where I think the visibility part comes in. if you set something up, the first person does it, the second person should be notified if there's a question on it. Usually it's at least medium urgent, right? You're setting something up. Usually there's a payment that's going to go out soon, and you've got multiple levels of approval, and it's usually management that needs to get involved. So this tends to be medium across the board. There are cases where speed is needed, it's higher, sometimes where it's lower, but that's pretty much the, you know, the middle, the mama bear and Goldilocks, right? Everything was just right. Portal use, this is another one where I generally say, if someone has a question, how do I set something up in the portal? How do I use this? How do I find it? It's almost always low. Unless you're using it and you can't find something, then like, I don't know how to do this. I can't find this function. Something seems to be turned off or adjusted, and then I need a quicker level of response. But a general question on portal use tends to be low. Portal use in the context of any of those other topics, particularly if someone is not familiar with it and they're subbing in for someone, they're filling in, and there's something that has a deadline, they're trying to get back, they want to do it right, and they don't know. And so generally it's low, but that can increase in the requirements too. Anything else?
And I think on portal use and questions, typically like you said, people, it's low urgency, low frustration, low speed. But what I've seen companies do when they're trying to create efficiency and implement a portal or some sort of a workflow to get all of the support requests through, and you want to be careful of this, is that put in a ticket mentality. I've seen it time and time again. Maybe you pick up the phone and somebody that created this big, beautiful, orchestrated method of this type of request goes here, this type of request goes here, gets somebody on the phone, and then they say, oh, I need you to submit a request through our online portal channel or something. That can become a pivotal point when that frustration level changes, right? If a customer is trying to go through one channel and they can't, or they're being steered to another channel that's not their channel of preference, that frustration level can get hiked up really quickly. So I think it's important to know that there's a lot of factors that go into the urgency, the speed need, and the frustration.
Yeah, that whole revalidation thing too. Like, okay, I logged into chatbot, it does all this confirmation, so it knows who I am. And then it's like, well, I need to talk to a person, and then the person gets on. Who am I talking with?
Yeah.
I just typed all that in.
Yeah.
So it's there's some good handoffs on this omni-channel approach.
Yeah,
Now,
I've done that. It's funny. We implemented chat support internally at the bank about 1.5 years ago, and of course I wanted to see what the real experience was, so I was using it, and I typed in my question. I gave all the details of what the issue was that I was experiencing, and then I got connected to a chat agent, a live chat agent, and she proceeded to ask me all of the questions that I had already pre-filled into the kind of pre-chat. And so, she was wonderful. She helped me out, got it solved, and everything was great. But I very quickly went to the director that was over the implementation and said, hey, here's some feedback. We need to make sure that this information transfers over and that our agents are looking at it. So there's always ways that you can improve.
Well, there's different age cohorts, and we can be obnoxious about, other age cohorts that we don't find ourselves in. We may fit neatly within the general characteristics of an age cohort. Maybe we sit in a different one in terms of our mindset and our approach. But we have 4 significantly different age cohorts in the workforce today, and that's changing, right? There's less baby boomers in the workforce, and Gen Zs are coming in. They're becoming managers, even directors, and so there's a significant shift at hand. And in addition to communication styles, and Jani and I'll talk about this, there's different expectations and a failure to understand how other people operate or how other age cohorts handle things. I'm older in the category, And I think it's easy for people in my age cohort to say the new workforce, right? They don't want to do the work. They're like, everything's got to be automated. It's like, we had to chop wood and bring it in to generate heat, and they just want heat in the buildings, and or whatever it happens to be. They want things automated. They want data to feed from one place. They want stuff to work. And so instead of thinking, well, that's lazy, is it really a unreasonable expectation that activities are automated and they work well, and that we recognize that we're in 2025, we have the ability to connect things and things to work efficiently? Why is that not a good expectation to have, that we challenge the process? Certainly everything won't change at once, but I think while we like to make fun of different age cohorts, there's a lot to be learned by each age cohort, I think. Baby boomers, phone calls in person. I'll tell you, I'm also an extrovert. For me, I probably fall into this category more likely when I go through the checkout line. If I have a lot of items, I don't feel like just dealing with the machine. I want to engage with the person. That's not the most efficient, but that's an aspect of communication styles, for a checkout line. Gen X, emails, emails would save our lives. Now we're buried with emails. But they definitely value efficiency more than just relationship and trust. And I think that matters quite a bit. Jani, as you think about these, what are some of the age cohort differences you find most intriguing and helpful?
Yeah, I love what you said about, is it acceptable for it to just be the expectation? And you think about there's a large group of the millennials, the 80s, 90s babies. They grew up with cell phones, and they grew up with text messaging and quick responses and chat and Google, and they're the generation of the MySpace and Facebook, and everything was digital and in the palm of their hands. So there is an expectation and a lean towards, I can just shoot off a quick text or chat and get a quick answer. They prefer conciseness. They're pretty informal, right? They're the ones that created all of the texting acronyms and the LOLs and the different terminology that we struggle with. I have to ask my teenage daughter all the time, what does that mean? Because I kind of fall out of it. But then Gen Z, it takes it another level. They expect digital. If they have to do something that is manual, they will not only be dissatisfied or be frustrated with it, but they might outright refuse to do it. Their expectation is the heat is on and it works. We're not chopping wood. There's a better way to do that. They expect instant messaging and those chatbots, and they're, again, very informal. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have that expectation. They're challenging us. The Gen Z generation is challenging us to think differently, to do things differently. One of the things, common phrases that I hear, especially in technology and in operational support, is the most dangerous phrase is, that's the way we've always done it, right? Your baby boomers clocked in, they did the work. Sometimes it was repetitive. Sometimes they, thought this is a terrible way to do this, but they did it, right? That's the way they did it. That's the way they were told to do it. Your Gen Z and your millennials are challenging that status quo big time, and they're transforming the way that we do work. I think Gen Z is going to be they are the AI adopters. These are the generation that they're buying cars using ChatGPT. They're not going to dealerships, right? They're creating PowerPoints in 5 minutes using AI. They're not spending 2 hours on a deck to present to executives. So it just kind of changes the way, not just the way we work, but it changes the way we spend our time. This generation's not spending their time putting the work together and doing the work. They're spending their time preparing for it, or preparing for a presentation, or going out and enjoying life. So it's just kind of a shift. But I think it's a welcome shift. And I think if any of these generational groups and age cohorts are open to the change, I think there's a lot to be learned from both. Right? There's a lot that Gen Z can learn from the Boomers and the Gen X, but there's a lot that the others can learn from each other. And then there's a lot of this kind of expectational change that's going to drive the way we support our clients.
One of the things that I was just thinking as you were talking, as we've been covering this issue, is if you look at the oldest age cohort, the most mature age cohort, it's values relationship and trust, and first phone calls are in person. And why is part of that? It's like, okay, the person I'm talking to knows context, knows our business, knows what's going on. And, we're looking for that too, whether you're a Gen X, millennial, Gen Z, baby boomer, or whatever. You're looking for context because context helps speed the process, helps with the efficiency. Why do I have to relay the stuff 6 times on one phone call or 3 times on one chatbot shifting to an agent? That seems terrible, no matter what age cohort you are. So the fact that we want context, I think, probably matters across all the different, channels that exist. If context matters, same thing with training AI. The more you train AI on specifically your subject matter, the better the responses are, the better the queries are. If we don't have that context, I think that frustrates every age cohort.
I think the difference is the some of the cohorts that they prefer that relationship because they know that the context is there, because they know, I know you, I've built a relationship with you, and I know your business. Whereas maybe the Gen Z and even the millennials now, they don't expect it from a personal level. They expect it to just be there. So they expect whoever I get on the phone, whoever I get on chat, has this magic system with this repository of context about me. So they have a system that says, this is Jani, this is her business, this is the last 6 issues that she's called in about, and there's an expectation that there's technology behind that agent or that support person that's giving them all that context, where in past it's been based on the relationship and getting to know that business and that person.
Yeah, excellent. Anything else that we should talk on this section?
No, I think you covered, just be careful not to stereotype. Like I said, they all bring value, right? And I think it's important to meet the customer where they are. You can have very tech savvy baby boomers, and you can have, off the grid Gen Zers that don't have cell phones. I learned a couple years ago there is a concept out there called the flip phone nation. I didn't know it was a thing, but this is a group of Gen Z, some millennial, that don't have smartphones. They have flip phones. They've gone back to the early 1990s kind of razor flip phones, and it's just a generational thing. There's some that are kind of moving off the grid and steering away from technology. So don't bucket them all into one, but it does allow you to kind of understand and know some of the generalizations of these groups.
The other thing, I have my kids, they're adult age, all of them now. They fall in the millennial and the Gen Z category. What I've seen on the ones that are Gen Z and later Gen Z is their focus on security. Mm-hmm. And like you said, filtering out some of the noise, not necessarily the flip phone approach, but more towards that, is so much more prevalent than the millennials.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just have to communicate with all of them.
That's right. That's right.
And why do they call me for technology questions? I don't know. I'm in the wrong category. So service channel preferences is our next poll question. For which type of task do you prefer human interaction over self-service or AI? So this is, you prefer human interaction, check the ones that apply. If you prefer self-service or AI, leave it unchecked. Go ahead and select those and submit it. And I will make another comment about the chat box. I asked for 99 South states in the chat box. I'm told we need 27 more. That's what I'm told. So perfect. This looks like everyone knows how to type it. Capital spaces. I don't know what's right, but looks like the S's are capitalized. So, all right, that's good. Thank you for that. Thank you for answering the poll questions. So which you prefer human interaction? Urgent payments or wire transfers, complex or multi-step transactions, problem resolution or troubleshooting, strategic guidance or advice, other or unsure. Some of these might have been a bit of a setup, but we'll see what people say. Okay, not a lot of distinction here. We have 65, 64, 62, problem resolution and troubleshooting, human interaction for all of those three is the significant majority, even strategic guidance or advice, which it seems like strategic guidance or advice would pretty much fall into the human interaction. I don't know if you had any thoughts on this. Urgent payments or wire transfers. What do you think about that? Like, if I can get it digitally, instantaneously, on a self-service way, that's what I want. Because I can hit the refresh or I can have the screen updated versus talking to someone who's going to be hitting the refresh button unless it's stuck or has to get approval. I guess those are the times, right?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on this?
I think this just paints the picture of everything we've been saying. There are all of these factors that contribute into the channels, the choices of the channels, the drivers of which ones we use, the age cohorts. But really, it comes down to personal preference. We've got, people from all different types of industries and walks of life and age cohorts, and we're pretty even across the channel that this group prefers to receive support from. And I think it changes, again, back to those drivers that we talked about. It changes based on what the need is. So I think that just from a cultural perspective, people have become accustomed to the fluidity of being able to pick up the phone or use chat or go into a portal or do self-service and become comfortable with going to the channel based on the immediate need that they have. So I think it's really interesting. I think that means that the companies have done it well, that they've offered those channels in multiple channels pretty well.
John in the chat box said, for me, if I'm picking up the phone to call someone to troubleshoot, I have already exhausted all the other self-service options. So I want a knowledgeable human on the other side. I think that's pretty quotable.
That's right. That's right.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Jani. And that is our last poll question? Let me see. I guess it doesn't matter.
I think we have one more.
Thankfully, we have one more. Everyone can rest easily knowing that we have another one. It's good. All right. So service options, talking through some of the pros and cons. I think everyone can think through some of these on their own, but I think we agreed to split it up, that Jani will take the top 60%, I'll take the bottom 40%. And I think everyone's happy to know that we do have enough people typing in SouthState. So we went over our 99. So thank you for doing that. Yeah, Jani, maybe talk through some of the pros and cons of self-service and any thoughts on that.
Yeah, so you think about all of these channels, right? Self-service being the lowest cost, in my opinion, right? Because you're basically eliminating the support person on the other side, right? I've provided the information out and our clients can go out there and find it. Typically it comes with 24/7. Typically it's pretty efficient for repetitive type stuff, right? General questions that happen all the time. That's the type of information that you'll see out there. I think about this, I think about your FAQs, about a certain platform, tool, or process. Those are generally the things that can be answered by self-service, or, hey, I want to submit a request for this thing. How do I sit a wire? What's the routing number? Those are the kinds of quick and easy things that you can get answered through self-service. So good stuff, right? Pros. The cons on the flip side of self-service is it's limited. When you are looking for an answer to a complex question or a complex issue, you're typically not going to find it in a self-service repository of sorts. You typically need not just a person, but you need a seasoned person that knows that issue, that system, whatever the complexity is. So self-service doesn't always lend itself well to supporting complex issues. And then you kind of think about, what's the next level from self-service? Well, it's the chatbot, the AI chatbot. And I talked a little bit about the differences between just a normal chatbot and an AI chatbot. Again, the benefits are really 24/7. You have quick resolution for those FAQ type things. There's low cost. You're not staffing it with people. The cons is, again, that complexity. It's going to struggle. And if somebody comes in to use a chatbot with the expectation that I'm going to get a quick turnaround, quick solution, but they have a complex issue, it's going to create a real recipe for frustration and the rage clicks or the I think about way back when you could say representative, and that's what people would say when they called in. There's a real opportunity for frustration there, and it lacks that relationship building. It's not a human, it's a chatbot. And no matter how well you build it, how well you design it, 9 times out of 10, the customer, the client can tell it's a chatbot, right? There's not very often I've heard someone say, I thought I was talking to a human and it wasn't, it was a bot. Most of the time you can tell. So you kind of lose that relationship building. And then you kind of get back to the stuff that really lends more into the relationship stuff. You think about the phone calls. It's easier. Craig, you said something earlier, about a text thread or an email thread that you're just going back and forth and it's ending up taking so long. And it just would have been a lot quicker and easier to solve this via a phone call. You have the ability to really clarify what's the issue, what's my request, what's my question. Quick escalations, right? If I'm the person on the other end that is supporting my client and they tell me what their problem is, and I know, number one, I can't fix it, but I know exactly who it is. I have easy, quick ability to escalate that call to the appropriate area to get it resolved. And it builds relationships, right? When they call me, they know me, they learn my name, I learn about their business. Having a conversation with somebody is always going to build relationships faster than exchanging emails or texts. But you can't staff phone calls 24/7. I mean, some companies do, but most companies do not, right? So phone support has limited hours. It's maybe not the preferred method for folks that have an aversion to human interactions. Craig, you said you're an extrovert, but I know a lot of introverts that's the one thing they do not want to do is have to pick up the phone and call somebody. They would prefer to hit all of the other channels first to try to get their issue resolved. And then staffing a phone queue is challenging because if there's a larger issue, if it's a pivotal point in the month, right? If it's tax time, if it's a Friday and payroll's going out, call volumes go up. So wait times go up, transfer times go up. So those are some of the things to think about when you're thinking about, the phone avenue versus an email versus self-service. There's a lot of pros and cons to each of these. And it tends to kind of vary based on not just the preference of the person, but the need, right? The task, kind of back to the drivers.
Yeah, on the email side, right? What's good about that? You can send an email at any time as long as emails are up. It gives you significant details. You can include other things that are necessary that support it. Here's screenshots. Here's a history or an audit trail. I think there's also some challenges. The too long didn't read. Someone's just typing and not getting to the point, either the request or the follow. One of the good things about email is you usually get acknowledgement. You received your email. It's in our queue. it's being routed and prioritized. The ability to have emails and requests that come in that way, prioritized according to level of need, will certainly help. So that's a pretty common way to do it. It's efficient on the servicer side, and if time is not of greatest need, it certainly works. On the relationship side, that's very costly, right? It's the relationship manager, the Treasury sales officer, taking calls for many tasks. It's there's a limited number of people that they can have, and that factors back into what costs are necessary. So being high touch has a higher cost associated with it, but the relationships team certainly works really well when you've exhausted all the other methods. You need someone who has context, someone who can escalate, knows when to escalate, how to escalate, or can handle the complex issues quickly. They act as a shepherd or a guide or a Sherpa through the bank or through the organization to handle those, and those really work well when you have those types of needs. On the omni-channel side, I'll take the left generally, and Jani will take the right. So what's important for us as if we're bankers, if we're a fintech, or if we're a corporate using those services, understand the channel strengths. Go to the right channel, the channel that you think will be the most effective, whether it's a call, an email, self-service activity, a chatbot. Understand the strengths and learn what works, learn how they're changing. So if your chatbot with your bank really stunk 2 years ago, maybe by next year it's going to be great. And then how do we use AI in this process, both as a provider, handling repetitive tasks or additional context, or learning? Those are quite efficient. So I'll flip it over to you, Jani.
Yeah, and just quickly, I think we've touched on most of this, but match your tasks to your channels. I talked earlier about that frustration point when you choose a path and you can't get what you need done via that channel, and you have to be deferred to another one. So make sure that you think about urgency, that you have enough space to answer the phones, and routine stuff kind of goes to your portals. And then monitor responsiveness, track timeliness, accuracy across those channels, inspect what you expect. The only way to continue to level up your company's support and level up the support if you're the customer or client is to monitor and give that feedback, track the timeliness, look at your data. Your data is the most critical piece of information that will help influence what you do next and what directions you go.
I like to use the word level up, the phrase. So move up. Awesome. So the poll question is our final poll question. What's the biggest challenge you face in optimizing your bank interactions? Here is a list of 6. We'll give everybody a chance to respond to those. I'm going to advance the slide. I guess that looked like I moved it back. Not sure how I did that, but I'll advance the slide, let everyone answer that. And then we'll get started. We're rounding the corner, heading towards the finish line of our discussion today. Really appreciate everyone engaging in the chat box and talking through this. I will say I'm pretty impressed. SouthState came out and said, let's talk about customer service. And I think it's a great topic. I was wondering how many people would really be interested in that. And it's been great to see. In the perfect world, we don't need customer service because everything's done perfectly, but there's no perfect world. And so how do we resolve, move forward efficiently? So it's a very, very good and relevant topic. All right. Jani, I'll look for your comments when they pop up. Your thoughts.
Not surprised at all. I want my answer and I want it now. We are in a new world of we are impatient creatures, and we want to go, and we go fast, and the world runs fast. So slow response times are definitely the biggest challenge, and you see that most of the time. And it's not resolution times, it's response times. People are okay if it's going to take a little while. They just want to know. They want to be informed. So you can go a long way with response times. Just let people know where you are in the
Your
process.
wait time will be approximately 7 minutes. That's better than wait, right? That's like the Disney effect of
That's
of
right.
things. Awesome.
That's right.
So influencing the outcomes, a couple things. I'll take the top two. Communicate preferences clearly. When you have certain tasks and there are options and there's certain levels of urgency, be clear about what you prefer, what your expectations are, and be open to hearing how the bank says these can be solved and how new things that they're trying. And sometimes when a bank tries a new process out, it's a little rough at first, but it gets better. And so, stick with them and manage your preferences and feedback you get. And I think everyone knows to leverage their relationship managers, their treasury sales officers. They know how to escalate. They know when things are important. They know the context. And so when you need them, use them, but try not to overuse them. So being specific, opportunistic about leveraging those relationships matters significantly.
Yeah, definitely. And then confirm your escalation protocols. Urgency is in the eye of the beholder, right? So make sure that you understand and that you agree with your bank on when the bank needs to escalate urgent issues for you, and what are high value issues in your mind, right? Make sure that there's alignment there. In the support industry, we call those service level agreements, if you will, or SLAs, but really it's a mutual agreement on how long something should take or at what point something should be escalated. So make sure that there's insight into that and that there's agreement between you and the bank. And then share your feedback. Feedback is so critical. Back to kind of leveling up. We have a kind of approach here at SouthState that we're constantly trying to be better. And so that feedback is critical. And I think that good feedback is as important as constructive feedback. I talk about this a lot. Nobody calls the electric company when they wake up in the morning and flip the lights on and they come on, right? Nobody says, "Hey, electric company, you're doing a great job." But I think it's important to remember to share the positive too, because support teams especially can learn just as much from praise and positive feedback and a story when somebody has gone above and beyond to kind of exceed their expectations. That can be as much of a training opportunity for their support team as constructive feedback. So I think that's the tip that I would share there. Both positive experiences and not so positive experiences. Share that feedback with your bank.
Yeah, excellent point. So I'll do the first two final thoughts. Understand the needs. We just spoke about this a moment ago, but recognizing our expectations change as users, as banks can recognize that the company, type of person it is, and the task all influence that. And this idea of being clear in your communication and give that type of feedback that Jani just mentioned, those matter. Communication is a process that needs to be managed. So let's do that.
Yeah. And leverage technology. AI is coming and it's going to transform the way we work. Automate the routine stuff, the repetitive stuff. Let the humans focus on the relationships. Use AI, technology, automation, bots to do the repetitive stuff. And then continue to optimize your outcomes. Balance that speed and accuracy. Align your workflows and your tools and your teams with the support needs of the client.
Thank you, Jani, and thank you, everybody. I'll flip it back over to Brian for a couple quick announcements.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Jani, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today. The CTP credits, today's webinar slides, and a recording of today's webinar will be sent to you within 5 business days. And be sure to download the Leading Practices in Treasury ebook by clicking the link in the chat box. Thank you, and we hope you have a good rest of the day.